I grew up in a town called Elizabeth. It's located 27 kilometres north of Adelaide, 1,300 kilometres west of Sydney, but it's 1,000,000 miles away from where I'd hoped to be. Having said that, Elizabeth is famous, but for all the wrong reasons. It has one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. It's voted South Australia's most dangerous suburb. And it's Australia's 4th most violent locations. Unsurprisingly, people poke fun at Elizabeth. Jokes like, what do you call a girl in a white tracksuit from Elizabeth? The bride. I've heard them all. But I'm very fond of Elizabeth because it's where I grew up. And it's where I discovered that if you don't get given opportunities handed to you on a silver platter, and you want to make something from nothing, you've got to get really good at bumbling. When I left high school, my parents sat me down and they said, "What do you want to be?" And I said, "I want to be an actress." And they said, "Oh, that's all very well, dear, but what do you really want to be?" And I said, No, I want to be an actress. And they didn't say this, but they could have been forgiven for thinking, how on earth does a plump, average-looking girl with the fashion sense of a Yeti, with no experience and no industry contacts from Elizabeth, become an actress? They didn't know. I didn't know. And no one we knew either. And the fact I'm standing on this stage right now can be traced back to 3 things. That conversation with my parents 33 years ago, their unconditional support for my unconventional life choices, and a simple act of bumbling through a doorway that changed my life. The idea I'd like to share today is that we must embrace the bumble, for it's through the act of bumbling we can achieve the stuff of dreams. The bumblebee is a much criticised insect. It's fat, it's slow, it's clumsy. It flits around aimlessly, rubbing its hairy body against others in the hope of fertilising them, and occasionally delivers something of value. But I can assure you, and I hasten to add, I'm a big fan of the bumblebee because for out of every 10 foods we eat, 7 of them are pollinated by the bee. And just as the bumblebee is essential to the fertilisation of food, so too, I believe, is the act of bumbling essential to the fertilisation of our dreams. Without bumbling, nothing new would bear fruit. The bumble needs a rebrand, and I'm here to tell you why. So what exactly is bumbling? Well, when I told my husband I was giving a TEDx talk on bumbling, he said, "You're doing what?" And I said, "Bumbling." And he said, "You can't give a talk to the creative and business elite of Melbourne on bumbling. Who wants to be seen as a bumbler?" And I said, "Well, what's your perception of a bumbler?" And he said, "Oh, they're clumsy and they're awkward and they're inefficient." And I said, "That's my point." I said, when we start something new that's really important to us, aren't we all clumsy, awkward, inefficient? When I first learnt to drive, clumsy, awkward, inefficient. When my toddler son first learnt to eat with a spoon, clumsy, awkward, inefficient. When my husband and I spent our first romantic night together. We'll move on. But does bumbling pay? Well, I recently wrote a book documenting the success stories of Australia's top online entrepreneurs. And what I discovered really shocked me because I thought they would have a meticulous business plan in place before beginning. But what I discovered was that most of them bumbled. Most of them had nothing of the sort. They bumbled. Like Paul Greenberg, for example. Now, Paul is the co-founder of the online retailer Deals Direct. Now, Paul was born in South Africa, but he's an Aussie at heart. And when I interviewed Paul, he said, look, it didn't matter that I couldn't bring money out of South Africa because I didn't have any. But what I could bring with me was a collection of vintage guitars. And he told me about this conversation he had with a stranger in this Sydney coffee shop, and how the stranger told him about this brand new little website called eBay. And that if he put a guitar up for sale, he might make some money on the side. So he did. And it sold. He put another one up, and that sold too. Before too long, he was selling anything he could get his hands on. Beds, blankets, bikes, barbecues, you name it, he sold it. And within 1 year, he became eBay Australia's biggest online seller. From there, he set up Deals Direct, and that became the first online department store in Australia, and subsequently disrupted the entire retail industry in this country. And in January this year, it launched on the stock exchange and was valued at $100 million. In Paul's words, we bumbled. Now, I said to my husband, why are we so hesitant to call this act of getting started bumbling? What are we afraid of? And he said, well, can't you call it something else? Something more acceptable. I get it, but just something more acceptable. And I said, what, like managing uncertainty? Negotiating complexity? Dealing with ambiguity? And he said, yeah. And I said, no, that's not what bumbling is. Bumbling is a creative process that takes us from confusion to clarity. It's a set of concrete actions. Discovery, examining, questioning, trying, testing, getting it right, getting it wrong, throwing it all out and starting all over again until we find something that makes sense to us. Bumbling is not easy. It brings up really unpleasant emotions. Fear, anxiety, despair, loneliness, insomnia. It's a riot. No, it's not. It's really uncomfortable. But if you want to get the benefits of bumbling, hope, joy, exhilaration, then you've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's where bumblers live. The reason I'm passionate about bumbling is because bumbling's been good to me. It's why I'm here today. Not long after that conversation with my parents all those years ago, I noticed a poster in a shop window saying, auditions. And I stumbled in, bright-eyed, bewildered by the bumblers before me. And that decision to audition for that very suburban theatre troupe changed my life and opened up a world of opportunities. From acting alongside Hollywood legends to writing a business book that I see on the shelves in the bookstores at airports around the country, and being invited into the corporate boardrooms of Australian businesses to help them express their ideas more effectively. They're the stuff of my dreams. I'll leave you with this. If you want to pollinate a plan or fertilise an idea, you have to act on it. Suggest that crazy idea to that client, even if they can't afford it and you can't quite articulate it yet. Ask that lady in row 3 out there you caught eyes with earlier for a coffee, even if you don't quite know how you're going to say it yet. Build that website for that bold business idea that you've been sitting on, even if you don't have any customers yet. These bubbles of bumbles, they're ephemeral, they're fragile, and you must give voice to them, or they will disperse and burst and then disappear like pollen in the wind. My journey of 1,000 bumbles began in Elizabeth 33 years ago. May your journey of 1,000 bumbles begin here today. Embrace the bumble. Thank you.